time. So this is just one of those bylaws that has left a number of residents, particularly those that have been victims of crime, perplexed. Just speak to us about what prompted, in your knowledge, this move.
Now, for me, looking at this move by the city to say that, listen, yeah, we're going to bring in a bylaw prohibiting people actually posting the footage that they capture on their private cameras that's situated on their private properties, but which overlook public spaces. It can the one thing can be that the city is most probably looking at to say that maybe by posting these things, the perpetrators are aware that the police are trying to track them and is actually investigating this matter. But then one needs to look at this bylaw. With what does it, or in what does it stand in conflict with? Then one looks at Section 12 of the Constitution as well as Section 25, because people install cameras to safeguard their properties and their primary residence, but also to safeguard them as with the view of protecting their lives. And now one would ask oneself, is like, this camera, is it infringing on any of the rights that the city might feel that they have? And then you balance that against the rights of individuals. And then one has to look at, constitutionally speaking, is this bylaw reasonable and rational? And I think that on a constitutional challenge, this bylaw will fail in when a constitutional challenge is lodged by residents or people affected by this bylaw.
Yeah, because now the question is, if you do have these CCTV cameras installed in your your property, but also outside your perimeter, because we've seen that some households have cameras just outside facing the street. And some of these video footage has been used for crime-fighting organizations, particularly those that are community-based, and have in some instances led to successful arrests, working very closely, of course, with the security companies that operate in that particular neighborhood. But now we understand that applicants must submit detailed plans and undergo pre-evaluation processes before receiving approval. In the meantime, in the interim, what do you think is within the ambit of households in terms of the law, whilst this process continues?
Firstly, for me, it's an implementation problem for the city, because how many households in South Africa already has these cameras installed on their perimeters in their premises that overlook public spaces? Now you need to go and monitor and say, but was this a new installation, an old installation? And then does this bylaw have retrospective operation to say that a camera that was there 15 years ago must now be taken off, or 5 years ago must now be taken off? And they must come and show what is the rationale of this bylaw. And I think it will be very difficult for them to come and prove what will the rationale be. And then one needs to look at a bylaw is like literally some of these laws that's really at the bottom, because you still have national legislation. Now you ask yourself, is this bylaw even in line with national legislation, and then eventually the Constitution? And then obviously you would find yourself to say, listen, yeah, the rationale and the justifiability of this bylaw cannot stand constitutional scrutiny. And for me, that is the problem that the city is faced with. And they need to come and show and say why these bylaws is now infringing upon a right that the city is going to actually have these bylaws in place that this infringes upon. Because you need to show that this, what the people are doing, is infringing on your space. And obviously, when we look at the Constitution, it's a public space. And in public spaces, you are allowed to video film. There is legislation that says you can film in public spaces. So what can the city show that saying, if I maybe film in the front of my house, what is happening there? How is it affecting the city's performance of their duties? Because you cannot tell me like, oh, I just want you to register a camera, but there's no rationale for it. Maybe you say, okay, it's in the way of essential infrastructure. That I can understand. Or it's on top of essential, but there's no essential infrastructure. And for me, the rationale that the city there must be procedural fairness, and there must be a rationale that stands constitutional scrutiny if the city wants to put up have these bylaws enforced.
Because
on top of that, who will do the enforcement?